so we're going to talk about 3 keys to getting your team and leaders rowing in the same direction, consistently quarter after quarter. Because here's the thing with vision. You can't do it alone, right? How many of you guys are leaders? You lead others? I'd just love a show of hands, right? I would say all of us are leaders in different ways, right? We lead in our homes, we lead in our communities. Maybe that's your actual title, that you're a leader or manager. And so we're going to talk about some ways to build on that and build on that success. Hey, it is working. Cool. All right, so tell me if this sounds familiar. Your closest leader tells you everything off. You guys have been grinding. You've been pushing really hard. Maybe it's a project. Maybe it's just a really difficult season, and they're like, hey, Michael, everybody's really tired right now. Like, I'm tired. I feel like we're just kind of like grinding here, and I don't know how long we can keep going. Or maybe they say something like, you have a meeting, you have something set up, and you kind of see the responses. You do the Zoom call, and people are there. Maybe it's video off. You guys ever have that sometimes, where you have folks that are there, but they're not there? You can be present, but not be there, right? You know what I'm saying? Or maybe you have it in person meetings, and you're just kind of like, man, that was kind of dead. That was kind of flat. What's going on here? Or the weekend's here, and you need to work again, right? You're kind of looking forward to having something off, but you know that there's no one else that's going to be able to carry this torch, carry this vision, carry this dream, carry what you want to have forward except for you. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about how to empower you and your team so that you guys can overcome any of that burnout, any of that disengagement, any of those spinning wheels. Have any of you guys experienced any of those things before? Right? Maybe you're experiencing some of them right now. Maybe your team is as well, so we're going to touch on that. So today I'm going to share these 3 keys that high-performing teams use to sustainably build their vision without taking years to make it your reality. And I'm going to share these things, and I'm really passionate about it because it took me way too long to share what I'm going to share with you today. And I want to speed up your process. I want to collapse time for you, and I want to make this and make your vision come to life. So let's talk about the beginning. My first management job, I worked for this small coffee company called Starbucks. Has anybody heard of Starbucks? Yeah. Hey, there we go. I see the cups. You guys are repping. There's Starbucks out there, so yeah, that's kind of cheating, I guess. But yeah, you guys all know Starbucks. I walked into a Starbucks because I didn't really know what else to do. I had my business management degree for about a year before that. And I had tried a couple different jobs. I tried a sales job. I tried different things, and nothing really stuck. The last place that I had just gone to actually was like the worst decision that I had ever made. I picked the wrong company, picked the wrong values. And so I have this degree. I'm married. I have young kids, and I walk into a Starbucks in Meridian, Idaho, and I say, hey, I want to learn how to lead, and I really don't know how to do it. You guys are a pretty big, awesome company that has a great culture. Could you teach me? And so I will never forget Rick Cartwright. Rick had the super cool black apron. Do any of you guys know the difference, right? The super cool black one where they're the coffee master. Everybody else has green ones. Well, Rick had the black one, right? And I'm like, okay, he's got to be the manager. So I talked to Rick. I said, Rick, I'd like to learn how to lead. I have this business management degree. I've kind of been struggling here a little bit. Could you teach me? And we had this really long conversation. It was beautiful. And during the middle of it, I don't know if you guys ever have this moment with you have leaders along the way that they say something to you that impacts you for the rest of your life. Rick said, Michael, I think in this moment I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And that's when I knew I had a mentor. How many of you guys have had a mentor that has changed your life? It made a huge difference for you. It might have been a parent. It might have been a grandparent. It might be someone that you've worked for, right? But Rick was my guy. He's my ride or die. Like, he was my guy. And so Rick taught me how to lead. He had been at Starbucks for a number of years, and this was early 2000s, so Boise was just starting to boom. Obviously, it's gone crazy, just like Twin has. And we opened up multiple locations. We had a ton of success. It was so fun learning how to lead people and do this culture thing and this service thing and this sales thing. And it was just amazing, right? And I wanted more. And the reason I wanted more is because I had grown up, my parents are basically working poor, lower socioeconomic status, whatever you want to call that. And they grinded for their whole lives, and they still do today. And I love my parents dearly because they taught me what it meant to work. How many of you guys have had amazing work? Like, how many of you guys have learned your work ethic from your parents? Right? Probably all of us, or grandparent, or somebody that way. And that's led it's a huge factor for my success. And they didn't know how to handle money because they didn't really have it. And anytime they had it, there were struggles there. Actually went bankrupt twice, lost a business. And so I never really knew how to handle money. But as I started, making money and I was doing the Starbucks thing, I was like, okay, I'm learning some different principles. I'd be like, man, how cool would it be to lead and to be able to help people financially at the same time? How cool would it be to marry that together? And it was just kind of this dream, and it kind of sat there for a while. And I'm like, I love what I'm doing with coffee, but that would be so cool to do that someday. And that someday came, and I got to work for, maybe you guys have heard of them. They were this little small up-and-coming credit union at the time, Idaho Central Credit Union. And they took a chance on me. Sounds like a song. Take a chance on me. Anyway. So I'm not a great singer, but that's all you're getting. So they hired me to help run their flagship branch. And at the time, I was like, gosh, why in the world are they hiring me? Like, I wanted this, but why are they hiring me? They're like, Michael, you got the degree. You know how to lead people. We'll teach you the rest, right? And they tried their best to teach me the rest. And I wish I could tell you that it was this perfect ride and it was all amazing, and I struggled out of the gate. I really had a hard time, partially just in how I grew up, but just really understanding the concepts of banking and how to do this whole compliance thing. And I started failing pretty quickly. And I made the cardinal sin. I don't know if you guys have heard this. Maybe you guys can help me finish it. Fake it till you break it. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's like the worst advice ever, right? Guess who can see you faking it? Everyone else, right? But I was convinced. I had that success. I knew at Starbucks, I could make it. I could do it, right? So I'll just do the same thing over here. Well, I didn't ask for help. And so then I started getting written up. Then I started failing compliance audits. That's a really bad thing to do for a financial institution, by the way, right? When you're leading other people. Finally got to the point where my boss was like, Michael, we like you. We know you're good with people. This just has to be fixed. And they supported me. It's not like they weren't trying to support me. And so everything kind of came to a head for me when they decided, hey, we're going to start grading our managers. We're going to take a look at how you're treating people, our customers, our members, everybody. I'm going to put this all together, and then we're going to rank everybody. And there's 18 managers at the time, right? Now, mind you, I didn't have a lot of success in certain areas, but I felt like I could compartmentalize. Have any of you guys tried to do that before? Where it's like, hey, there's one area of your life that isn't going well, but I could try to do good in these other areas and kind of convince myself that it was okay. That's what I was doing. And I was too prideful to actually ask for help. And so when this report came out, I was pretty convinced. I'm not going to be the top one, but probably maybe middle of the pack-ish, something like that. And the report comes out, and I'm not top 5. I'm not top 10. I'm not middle of the pack. I am dead last in the organization. Dead last, right? You just kind of have this gut punch. So I called up my boss at the time, Greg, who's another amazing mentor. Just perfect people in the perfect timing, right? Sometimes you just have the right people in the right place at the right time. So I called up Greg, and I had a little bit of reflection time. I said, Greg, I've read the report, I've seen what's on there, and I'm pretty sure I know what has gone wrong. Somebody's messed up on this report. I don't want to throw out names. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm pretty sure the data's wrong, and I'm pretty sure somebody's screwed up here. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, Michael, maybe the service and the leadership that you're providing isn't what people are actually experiencing. Maybe there's a disconnect there. And I wish I could tell you that in that phone call, I said, Greg, oh my gosh, thank you so much. What an epiphany. What great wisdom. I didn't do any of that. I kind of had this half-hearted, thanks, Greg, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll think about that. You know what I mean? Oh, crap, this sucks. And so I hung up the phone, and I didn't sleep for about 4 days. Have you guys ever been in that crisis point where you don't sleep, you think about the same thing over and over again, it's kind of your mind's on repeat, you're like, how do I fix this, how do I fix this? And I just had what I can only call a God moment. I don't know where you guys land with any of that, but I had this idea that dropped into my mind in the middle of the crisis, in the middle of the storm, that said, Michael, if you're the problem, not part of the problem, I was the problem, right? It was affecting my family. It was affecting my relationships. It was affecting my stress. It was affecting my health. all of it, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I've got all these issues. But if I had the realization that if I was the problem, that I could be part of the solution. And honestly, guys, it just gave me so much hope. It wasn't the answer, but it was an answer, right? That I could actually do something different here. And what changed for me wasn't this, I knew that all these things were going on, but I was like, wait a second. If I can be part of the solution, then maybe what I can do is start seeing how I'm impacting people. And that's the biggest difference, right? Change, we can always see some of the external factors, but that survey, all the different stuff that was happening, I started having this reflection time where I'm like, wait a second, I'm actually really impacting my team. Not in great ways, by the way. I had good people leave. We were not winning at all in any metric, really, on all these different pieces, hence me being at the very bottom of the scorecard. And the parable of the sower came to mind. Many of you, maybe I'm sure, familiar with it. But basically, I was sowing bad seeds, right? And the more bad seeds that I sowed, the worse the fruit I had. And if I sowed good seed, I could harvest the right fruit. And I could do that over and over and over again. And so then I just made a decision. I made a commitment. I resolved to do something. Have you guys ever had that where you just made a commitment? Not like I should do this, or that'd be really nice. I had no other choice, right? I guess I could have. I could have, imploded. I could have left and gone to another company. I could have made really bad decisions. But I made a decision in that moment that I was going to start leading differently. That today was going to look different. And no matter what the consequences were, I was just going to start doing things differently. And that was the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. And I had the support of people around me. I started actually asking for help. Go figure. Like, how crazy is that, right? I said, team, I've been doing these things, and I haven't been honest with you, and here's the things that I've been struggling with. And they were super kind, but they're like, yeah, we know. Just like everybody can see it on the outside. I go to my family and do the same thing. Hey, guys, I haven't been transparent with you. I need help in these areas. It's not their responsibility, but they wanted to support me. I started diving into every single management book, leadership book, podcast, like anything I could to start consuming the information that I had pushed away before because I already had it figured out. Or I was too prideful to take on. And that transformation, and the reason I'm sharing this with you is because in less than 3 months, I went from the worst manager in the credit union to the best, worst to first. We started winning awards. I literally should have been fired. I love sharing this story because Idaho Central had so much grace for me at that time. I should have been fired. And then they decided to, I have success with my teams. They decided to promote me. We opened up over 20 branches I got to do with them all throughout the state. Here in Twin Falls, obviously you guys have a couple amazing locations. And we got to build these amazing teams together. And we start seeing the internal successes. I had managers starting calling me and saying, Michael, what's going on over there? What are you doing? But not in a, Michael, what are you doing? It wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing. And so I started sharing some of those different pieces, got promoted, got to do just amazing work with them. And then 3 years ago, I decided, well, actually, this is a funny story. Can I tell you guys this? This is in the script. This is in the slide. So my wife about 4 years ago says, Michael, I think that you should start your own company. I think you should start your own consulting firm and help other businesses do what you've been doing. You've had a great run. And I was like, that's a terrible idea. I don't know if you ever have that with your spouse. You're like, no, what are you talking about, right? I've worked so hard. I've got this all set. I've got the corporate car. I got all the cool stuff, right? I've got retirement. Like, what are you talking about? That's a really bad idea, hon. I love you, but no. And God's funny, and she's funny. She never pushed it, of course. But just over time, it was just little nudges, until finally it was like, yeah. This is the time to do it. And it's been amazing. So fun. So I get to teach these principles. What I'm going to share with you today is what I share with my clients. I get to work with over 25 clients. We've got an amazing team. And this stuff is real to me. It's personal to me. This is more than just sharing, about the vision, because your vision is too important to die. Your vision is too important to not have it go fully throughout your whole organization. Of course, our sales and financials skyrocketed, right? I mean, and this is not just true for me. This is true for my clients, which is really fun to see some of these models built and then to see their sales jump by 40, 30%, And this has been touched on this morning. I actually just loved both of the presentations, and I'm so excited for what you guys are going to hear this afternoon. But this has been touched on, but maybe a different way for it to land. When we decide to get real with ourselves and with our teams, we can make shifts happen incredibly fast. And if you feel stuck in any area of your leadership, if you feel stuck in any area of your life, I want to share with you, just like with my experience, that it takes a decision, it takes commitment, it takes the right team around you, and it takes the right frameworks to help make that happen. And so I want to encourage you, if you feel that way in any area, that you can make those shifts happen incredibly and powerfully fast. So before I dive into our big three, I kind of tease it a couple times, guys. I'm kind of like, it's going to happen, then hold on a second. We're going to jump back up a second. I'm going to talk about a couple myths or things that it doesn't look like. So number one, more fun, more benefits, more pay, that's going to keep people. And that was touched on earlier as well. You can't buy connection. You can't buy buy-in. It just doesn't work, right? It's actually really like bad parenting. I don't know how many of you guys are parents, right? Have you ever tried to bribe your kids? Not as many hands up. I don't know about that. I bribe my kids. I got 3 teenagers, man. So here's the deal. Sometimes that happens, right? And we feel like, oh, well, if we this will be this exchange, if I pay and benefits, and then of course they'll do this. Well, that can only carry you so far. Now, pay and benefits and fun is super important, but it's not everything, right? There's some pieces that keep people there and keep them bought into your vision. Number 2, working more hours and having more of your leaders try harder. I would say over the last 4 years, pandemic's been part of this. There's been this time in history is probably the hardest for leaders because there's that work shortage that we heard about earlier, but also just because there's been more and more piled on top of leaders. And so when you're trying to tell leaders, hey, you just need to work harder, you just need to work more hours, you need to do these things and just grind it out, that whole grind and hustle culture, that's dead, by the way, right? Good riddance. It never really worked. It basically just meant, hey, I'm going to burn myself out faster, right? Number 3, I love this picture. Scheduling more meetings to rally the troops and get them on board. That's sometimes called death by meeting, and sometimes it's, this repetition. If we just talk about it enough and we talk about it every meeting without connecting to the why, without connecting to the vision, without connecting to the heart of each individual, that'll just do it. And instead it feels like this candle, which I should probably get. It'd be a great gift. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the 3 keys high-performing teams use to accelerate their vision and results. You guys ready for this? Yeah. This is the note-taking time. This is it. It was right before lunch. I promise this is going to be really good. So I got the ABCs, and when I was practicing this, my boys were like, Dad, don't sing the song. Don't do it, right? You know what I'm talking about from the Jackson 5, right? I can't hit those notes. I'm not Michael Jackson. I can't do that. But the ABCs, so assess, build, and commit. All of the most powerful principles in our life are the most simple. It's the power of doing them, right? So I'm going to share some frameworks, but we're kind of going to go, have you guys seen those nesting dolls, right? Sometimes they're Russian nesting dolls or whatever, where they kind of have like the one doll, and then you open it up and there's another one, you open it up, there's another one, and they kind of like all hop inside of each other. You guys know what I'm talking about? I'm getting some head nods. Some people are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. They're super cool, right? Handmade, anything like that. So we're going to talk about these ABCs, but I'm going to nest, and I'm going to tell you when I'm going to do it, where certain principles and frameworks are actually going to kind of nest into the next one. So I'm going to throw as much value at you as possible, but I'm going to make sure it's super organized. Does that sound fair? So when you're taking your notes, you're going to do A, B, C, right? You're going to write out each one of these. That's why I'm sharing with you all at the same time. And then we're going to go underneath of each one. Does that sound good? Cool. All right, so assess. This is the soil, right? So I was kind of talking about the parable of the sower earlier. This is what I kind of call the ground truth. I'm going to touch on that here for a little bit. What does your soil look like? How many of you guys have gardened or farmed or anything like that? It's a pretty agricultural spot, right? Lots of farms out here. I try to garden, a little bit. My wife's a really good gardener, and I try to support her. Soil's really important, right? How hard is it? What's actually in the ground? Is it fertile enough to have something grow? And so that's what we're going to speak about on the assess piece. So you have to start with reality. Was I in reality before I had my change, my conversion, my epiphany, whatever you want to call it, right, in my own experience? Was I in reality? No. I was in my own reality. I was in the people-pleasing reality. I was in the fake it till you make it reality. I was in the managing perceptions reality, right? I don't know if any of you guys have been there. Oh, it's not as important about what I do and what I say and all this stuff. It's, well, how do I think that person thinks about me, right? That's a real dangerous place to be. But if I can be honest and I can be vulnerable, I can start with reality. So what's the ground truth? When I say ground truth, what do people talk about when you're not in the room? What do they talk about at the water cooler? What do they talk about through text? What do they talk about through whatever social app is popular right now? I don't know. Whatever the latest cool thing is. How do they talk? I want to know that. I may not know all of it, but I want to know that. How can you get real data from your teams, your customers, your partners? This is where surveys are so important, and I'm not talking about the 200-question survey that everybody's like, oh my gosh, we have to do this once a year, and it's like 4 hours long. And, I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about getting real data from real questions. There's a quote, and I can't credit it, but it's definitely not mine. The quality of the questions that you ask yourself and others determines the quality of your life and your relationships. And I love that because it's the quality of what we ask for and how intentional we are that makes the biggest difference. Now, one thing that I use personally, this is my own piece that I've developed, is I call them pulse surveys. It's 5 minutes. It's super short, targeted questions, totally anonymous. And I want to know what people think. I want to know if they feel valued in what they do. I want to know if they feel empowered. I want to know if they feel developed. I want to know if they feel like they even want to be there. That's kind of important, right? But I just want to know the ground truth. And it's really powerful and very important to make sure that people feel like they can just express themselves. If you do surveys or do anything like that and it's not anonymous, you're never going to get to that deeper layer. Really, really important. So that's one tool that I use that is so helpful. Actually, all of my clients use it. I force them to. I just say, guys, you got to do this. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. And I will tell you, full disclosure, if you do something like this, you're going to have skeletons in the closet. Spoiler alert, every company does. Because guess what? We're human, right? We all have issues. We all have things that need to be addressed. The question is, and your organization might be at a really good place right now. Well, how can it be great? Well, we have to address some of the stuff that's happening. If we don't do that, we're never going to get the vision locked in to the level that we need it to be to make sure that every single person is on fire and excited and as passionate as you guys were when you just yelled vision earlier, right? If you don't have that, your vision can move forward, but it can't ever move forward to the degree that it could on the other side. Second one is build. So this one's sowing the seeds. So we've done some of the work. We know what the soil's like. We've started addressing some things. And that's what I love about the pulse survey pieces. We can just assess and be really tactical and practical about some of those action items. And then we get to do the build piece. We're going to spend a little bit of time here in build, most of our time in build, honestly, for the next little bit. Because sowing the seeds and having the plan is a big, big deal. Now, we started with a really small garden, right? Like the little herb garden. And then we jumped into the boxes at home. I'm just telling you guys gardening for a little bit. Are you guys okay with that? Okay, all right. So we've got like 6 of those garden boxes, and we did that for a couple of years. And then my wife's like, you know what? We got 3 boys, guys. They're teenagers. They don't stop eating, right? They just don't. Just like we probably should plant more. So we have a 40 by 45 foot garden. This thing's a monster, okay? You have to know what the plan is. What are we going to plant? When are we going to plant it? What do we have to start? How do I water all this, right? I had to figure all that out. Thank goodness for YouTube. So we had to have a plan. So this is the plan. Now, I'm going to share this framework with you. So again, we're doing nesting. I'm going through the nesting, right? We have ABCs. So in B, you're going to make sure you've got tons of real estate on your paper, because we're going to talk about a lot of things in B. These 5 are sequential. This is what I use for every strategic planning I do for any organization. Profit, for-profit, nonprofit, a church, ministry, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. These 5 are critical, and they are in order. So I'm going to explain it for just a moment. And I'm going to tell you why this is so different and why most people build plans backwards and why it doesn't lead to the sustained success and lead them to the vision that they really want to achieve. So number one is culture. A lot of talk is talked about with culture. Who do you have on your team? Like, why are they there? What drives them every single day? What kind of people do you want to hire? And I don't mean for skills and knowledge and ability. I mean, what kind of character do you want? Do you want people who persevere? Do you want people who push above and beyond? Do you want people of integrity? Do you want people who are honest? The further you go down this road with culture and the more time you spend in culture, the better people you will get and the better people you'll retain. Every single time. There's some really powerful questions to ask with culture. And then assessing that. Every company that I work with, we assess culture every 3 months. You can't do it enough. Now, sometimes there's lots of different ways to do it. I want to get those pulses. I want to kind of know where people are at. I want those little check-ins because I want to make sure we're staying on track with that. Once I've got the right people with the right hearts, with the right vision, with that right culture. How many of you guys have worked in an amazing culture before? Maybe you're working in one right now. How many of you guys have worked in a really awful culture? Yeah, almost everybody's like, I've done fast food before. Whatever it is, right? Nothing wrong with fast food or retail, by the way. I think that's a great way to go, great way to start. You know what it looks like, and you know what it feels like, and so does your teams, right? And it's the number one reason why people stay and why they go. Second one is service. So once we have a strong culture, again, this is sequential, so we start with culture and then we move into service, right? Now we actually are able to provide great service. And I'm not talking about, so many of us probably experience bad service quite often, right? It's kind of become more of the norm. Is that fair to say? Right? You guys, I could probably say, hey, what was the most recent, really, really bad service experience that you had? You can probably tell me pretty quick. How many exceptional service experiences have you had? It's like, oh my gosh. I walked in there and I felt like I was the only person there. So it's like they knew me. They were asking me these really cool questions. They fit my need. Actually helped me out with whatever it might be, right? Like you just feel known. And it's almost like it's so rare. You're just, whoa, that was unexpected. I think I need to tell 50 people, right? That's the kind of service I'm talking about, right? Because it doesn't happen every day. But when you build the right culture and have the right people, then you have the privilege to provide this exceptional service. And once you do those two things, guess what happens? Incredible growth. That was my story. That's what I saw. We were not doing fantastic before making those changes. And as soon as I started implementing these pieces with my own teams at Idaho Central, but then also with the organizations I get to work with, your growth is just through the roof. Because most people don't do the first two, right? They're focusing on profitability and headcount and all the numbers and all the metrics. And don't hear me wrong, numbers and metrics are super important, but they will never trump these two, ever. And they always drive the rest. So once you have growth, guess what? You got money, right? How cool is that? Now we have finances. Now we have resources. Now we can actually reinvest in the company. We can decide what we want to do moving forward. And then that fifth one is systems. And that's, okay, how do we want to scale? How do we want to take this to a new market? How do we want to add on more people? What do we want this to look like? And unfortunately, and I've seen a lot of plans, a lot of them are focused on the financials and the systems. If we just make X amount of money, or we do this amount of sales, or we take on this super cool new CRM or funnel or system or whatever, that will be the key for us. And you might get a shot in the arm for a while. It might work for a bit. But we got to, again, make sure that the soil's really good so it can be sustainable. Or you're going to see a lot of this, a lot of ups and downs, right? Or even worse, like a super big spike and then the big drop, right? So that's why it's so important for me. I'm super passionate about these big five. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit. So again, we're going to nest for a moment. So you guys have all five written down? Yeah, I kept it up long enough. So now we're going to talk about two frameworks that are going to help you with those big five. So we're going to kind of nest it inside of it. And so this one next framework talks about culture and service. This is the number one way to help you make sure that you have the right people in place and that you have the right service in place. So we're going to talk about the 3 C's. Awesome, that showed up good. I wasn't sure how this was going to show up on there. This is a cool setup. So the 3 C's are committed, capable, and coachable. A lot of people are 1 of 3 or 2 of 3 out of the gate. And when you look at this, I want you to think about maybe somebody on your team. We're going to have some self-reflection time here in a little bit. But let's just maybe you think of somebody. I want you to take them through all 3 C's, and I want you to rate them, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, and give them a number. And I want you to base that off of your experiences. So what happens a lot of times is we can have biases positively or negatively. We can have maybe their skills and knowledge get in the way. This kind of helps cut through all that to say, how committed is Joe? Is Joe here every day? Does Joe want to be here every day? Does Joe believe in what we're doing? Right? And to what degree? What helps me show that, and what helps me not see that? I want to know where Joe's at. How capable is he? Now, capable doesn't always mean that they can do the job right away, right? Lots of times people will move into a new position. Maybe they'll be new to an organization. Maybe they're new to the workforce. So they're not really capable out of the gate, but do they have the capability of growing? And how can I assess that? That's a really important question to ask. Some people are they're the right person in the wrong position. That happens a lot in organizations. And pride and money get in the way sometimes. Right? I've been in some bad positions. I was at a call center in college for 6 months, and it was the worst job of my life. I hated it. It was what was it? GMAC contact center. I had to call people about their car payments. I was in college. I could have cared less. I had no connection, but I was like, oh, I just need to make money. And so there's nothing against contact centers and call centers. Like, they're great. But for me, like, that was just such a really, really bad decision because I wasn't committed, and I wasn't capable of really doing it either. I didn't do a great job. So you have to, have that in place. And then this third one is the one that trips up most people, and I shared my story with you a little bit. This is why it's so important for me to share. A lot of people can be committed to a job, and a lot of people can be capable of doing the job, and a lot of us struggle with being coachable. We can get resistant. We can shut down. That's a real popular one. We can blame other people. We can blame not having enough resources, right? Now, some of those things could be true, but in the moment when you're receiving feedback, when you know that there's an area that you want to grow in and that you need to grow in, that is the best time for you to move forward. That's the best time for you to embrace this and have this in place. And so what I want to impress upon you is that with the 3 C's that I'm talking about here, it's the growth engine. If you have people who are committed and capable and coachable, and nobody's perfect, but our goal should be to be at that 10 level for all 3. And if we can do that, if we can be consistent in that, if we can be focused in that, and we can give our teams tools to make that happen, then we're going to have incredible results. We're going to have incredible culture and incredible service. Okay, so let's jump into the next 2. So we kind of nested that one, right, underneath there. On the next one here, the model that I'm going to share with you is for the growth and the financials. So let's say, man, we've got this piece set. We've got these 3 C's going. We're assessing folks. We're knowing where they're at. Then how do we really keep this loop going? We had success. How do we keep that going? How many times have you guys had maybe success with a project or different things, and then you're like, well, man, why did that work? Right? You're just like, that's cool that went good, but why did it go good? Sorry, that's really bad grammar. Why did that go well? What's the success loop? Well, the success loop is one that I worked backwards. I kind of re-engineered. All the frameworks that I have up here are mine. They're things that I've kind of gone back through time and say, okay, well, why did that work? And why did that not work? And then for each time that we've done different things. And there's different elements that you guys have heard a little bit this morning. But this motivate, track, celebrate is really powerful. And I just want to dissect it for a moment. It helps fuel growth. It helps fuel your financials. The first one with motivate is not as much rah-rah as it is what does that person individually need and what individually motivates them personally. How many of you guys are motivated by money? I would hope most of you, to some degree, right? You guys need money to live, right? But not everybody rose their hand. Why is that? Because that may not be your main thing. How many by family? Like you're working because you're helping support your family. You're building a legacy, right? I'm not up here today just to talk to you guys while I love doing that. I'm building a legacy for my family. I'm building something for my boys, something that they can carry on, right? How many for you is it time freedom, right? I want to be able to have time freedom now and in the future. I want to be able to retire. There's so many different factors, and sometimes we get so focused on what the corporate goal is or what my personal goal is and what I'm driving that we don't slow down enough to say what motivates the very people who are going to actually help me get this across the finish line. What do they want? Right? So we have to go, I say get at least 3 motivators. What are 3 different motivations that you can focus on? And I'll recap this here in a moment. But if you can identify at least 3 motivators, and the cool part is once you start paying attention to this, it's really easy to see because people are like billboards. They'll tell you once you start paying attention. Have you ever guys done that? Or, maybe you'd never noticed a company before and then you're like, oh my gosh, I see billboards everywhere, right? Or you're looking for a car and you're like searching for a Toyota Tundra with a crew cab max, because you have really tall teenagers and you need something big enough. Just as an example, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I see these things everywhere now, right? That's how it works. It's the same thing with your teams. What makes them tick? Because they'll tell you by how they light up when they talk about something. They'll tell you by the project that they did. They'll tell you by what they did over the weekend. They'll tell you literally by what they're wearing sometimes, right? Oh my gosh, Tom's this IndyCar guy. He's so into this, right? So I want to find motivators that help them achieve their dreams. Because Tom may want to go to the Indy 500 someday, right? How could I help make that a reality for Tom? That'd be kind of cool. And then, by the way, we're going to achieve our results at the same time. Track, this one's really big, and this one was touched on. I have a client, I'm going to share 2 stories. One is, I have a client who they decided a number of years back to have the whole organization, front line all the way up, to track their year-end financials as their metrics for success. So, and they decided to be generous and say, hey, we're going to bonus off of these things, which sounds good. It's like, oh, that's cool. The only problem is they didn't report any of it until the very end of the year, and they were all numbers that nobody on the front line understood. It's like their net income and return on assets, like all these different numbers, right? So the team was like, well, we're kind of happy that we get more money when we get more money, and then if we don't get more money, we're like, well, we didn't get a bonus this year. It's just really weird. It was off, right? And they weren't engaged in meetings, like I shared that slide earlier where they were just like, oh, okay, we're here. That was kind of what they were experiencing. So we started working backwards and we said, so what actually leads to some of those big numbers that we're talking about? And we talked about the sales and we talked about, what they would do and contribute. And then we went one layer deeper. And this is where I want you guys to kind of highlight on track as you're writing out. I want to focus on the daily behaviors and habits and character that I want to see, right? So for them, it was a credit union that I get to work with, another partner, and I said, man, what if you had 15 amazing financial conversations every day? Like you went all out and you just really focused on that person and you looked at them and you asked them what their goals were and you just really went deep. Do you think that could translate into let's just track that for a little bit and see what our results look like. Because their results were okay, but they literally tripled in the month. All we did is we focused on something they could actually control. We gave them direction on what that should look like. And then we celebrated, to jump ahead just a little bit, that last little bit, right? We celebrated every single day. Oh my gosh, you had 20 of those? How cool is that? What kind of conversations did you have? Hold on, that Mrs. Smith sat down? What did she sit down for? Oh, well, then they get to tell the story, because the stories are the most powerful part, right? That's what keeps the success loop going. The second one is a real estate company. And their big goal, they were just moving into a new market, and their goal was they wanted to be top in the market, and they wanted to be 10%, at least 10% market share, right? And they were just entering, so they were 1%, 2%. So every single week, all of their leaders would get on a call, and they would say, okay, guys, let's pull the numbers. Where are we at for market share? And remember, the goal is 10%. Now, if you know anything about real estate and transactions and all that kind of stuff, it takes time. It's not an overnight thing. Every week, week after week, like, where are we at? We're at 2%. We're at 2% again. That was it. That's what they were tracking. That's super demotivating, right? They weren't excited about it. So we did the same thing. Let's start working backwards. How many transactions would it take for you guys to start having movement? And then we worked backwards again and say, okay, well, we don't want to celebrate just transactions because you can't control whether somebody buys or sells ultimately, right? You can help them through the process, but they might pull out, the deal might fall through, right? What could you actually control? Well, every week we could talk to 50 people in the community and have genuine conversations about real estate. We could help them maybe look at their place. We could look at seeing if there's a need. We could help them having conversations around buying and selling. We could go to some of these events. Or we could do at least 50 a week. And we would track that and would have that on our big whiteboard, and we'd celebrate the heck out of it. Because we're not focused on the fruit. We're focused on the roots, what's going to help us be really strong. And now they've skyrocketed, right? So sometimes it's just a shift in specifically what we can control and also focusing on what can we do that shows character. It shows character to show up every single week and do the things with all of your heart, with all of your intention. And sometimes that's the piece that gets missed. It's not just the behaviors. It's the heart behind it. And then celebrate. That's been talked about twice this morning, which I just love. The daily behaviors and the daily habits need to be celebrated. Now, I'm not a big participation trophy guy, right? I've got teenagers who are competitive, which, by the way, I pretty much lose at everything now because they're taller than me, and they're stronger than me, and there's not a whole lot of things that I win at. And I want to make sure that they're being celebrated, right? And I want to make sure that it's genuine. So a really great way to make sure that something's genuine is you go to their character and not necessarily the end result. Super easy to celebrate the sale. Super easy to celebrate the numbers. And that's a one-time shot. It either happened or it didn't. Hey, great job this month, and then we move on. I want to focus on their perseverance. I want to focus on their heart. I want to focus on their compassion. I want to focus on, man, you stayed later today, and I see you, and I appreciate that. Right? Whatever it might be, whatever the core values of your company are, those are the things that you should be highlighting, and you should be highlighting them with that same language because you'll get even more than you would by just being, hey, great job, we celebrated that win. The wins are important. Another thing that just kind of comes to mind, I don't know if this sounds, familiar to you guys. I've never actually heard anybody say, Michael, the reason I quit, the reason I left, wasn't really the pay. You know what the reason was? They celebrated me way too much. They were over the top. Every single day, it was like, oh my gosh, Michael's great, and all these things, right? Like, nobody hears that. They valued me too much. That's just what happened. And then I was like, see ya. Right? You guys all know it. Maybe you've experienced it. Why do people leave? Because there's a disconnect between their heart and their achievements and what they do every single day and what's being recognized. There's so much power in it. It has to be authentic. It has to be genuine, of course. But it also has to be rooted in a consistent effort as leaders. You will keep amazing people just by holding on to that. So good. Okay, so I'm just going to recap on these, and we touched on them just a moment ago, but obviously those motivators, you need to have 3 of those. The tracking piece, I'm a big fan of whiteboards. Every single client always laughs because they're like, okay, why do you need all these whiteboards? People need to visibly see it, right? How many of you guys are visual learners? You need to see it. Right? That's pretty much, that was like all of you guys almost, right? Some people are more auditory. What gets tracked and measured is what happens. And people need to walk by that and see their successes. And it needs to be focused on their efforts, right? It's a huge blessing to be able to do that. Daily and weekly. So if you're sitting up here and like, Michael, this sounds great, but I don't know how to do this. I shared a couple of examples with you. And if you want to catch me afterwards, I'll help you dissect and kind of work backwards a little bit because every position, every company has specific daily things that you guys all do, maybe sometimes even without thinking, that can make an impact. And if you bring your full presence, your full self, your full heart into that, man, changes things. So we want to celebrate those things. We want to celebrate those behaviors and the milestones. We want to celebrate the big wins, and we want to celebrate the daily pieces as well. Okay, last one, systems. So I told you, kind of, we nested them, right? So we took the 3 C's and put them under the first 2, right? Then we had these 3 and 4. And we pulled in the success loop. So they're super cool. You guys can kind of cheat. So basically all you have to do is take those 2 frameworks and you repeat them over and over again and you refine it for your systems. Because when you get to systems, it's all about scaling. It's all about growing. It's all about how many more people do we want to hire. So all you have to do is make sure that when you're doing that, you don't lose sight of the very things that got you there. It's a really easy trap. People overextend. We're actually seeing that quite a bit in the workforce, right? Because you're seeing companies lay people off because it got too hot. They didn't incorporate some of the things that they needed to. They hired maybe a little bit too much, and now they're scaling back. You want to fit that correctly out of the gate. All right, number 3, we're nearing the end. We got lunch coming too, which is exciting. I think we get to sit outside too. Maybe I'm not spoiling something, but I think that's a thing. So we get to have some amazing lunch coming up here. So commit. Now, when we were talking about commit earlier with the 3 C's, think of this in that structure of the ABCs, right? So we're committing and we're reaping the harvest. Now, this is true for human nature. It's true for me. It's really easy to do all the prep work. Some people are really sort of habitual about this. They call them serial entrepreneurs, but then there's nothing that actually works longer term, right? I've started different things in the past, and it's kind of I played with it for a little time, and I built some things. Commitment is what makes it work. And so it's really easy to have this one, drop off. So we talked about the 3 C's earlier. One thing I would just want to leave you with that maybe you guys can do personally, you don't have to do that this moment, is where are you at with the 3 C's? How committed are you in what you're doing? Do you need to be somewhere else? Are you called to be somewhere else? Or do you need to recommit to be in the soil that you have been firmly planted in? You need to recommit to say, man, I know I'm not bringing my full self to work. And here's why. Right? Just being real honest with that. And maybe there's an opportunity. Right? Maybe there's an opportunity to do something different. Are you capable of doing the job that you're doing? Is there more room to grow? How many of you guys have more room to grow? Right? Yeah, 100%. Same here. And then how coachable are you? That's a tough one. Sometimes it's oh my gosh, of course I'm coachable, until it's something that touches on something that I don't want to be coached on. Maybe if you're married, you know how this works, right? Yeah, I know how to do the dishes, thank you very much. So what is that for you? And how do you respond to that? Not just externally, but internally. If you bristle a little bit at something, that's something to kind of look at, right? What are you personally willing to commit to? What's one thing that you want to take away from today? You've heard some from amazing speakers. You've heard some different things. What do you know is the one thing that you're Michael, this is the thing that I know that I know that I know that I need to be doing? How can you prevent your vision from just gathering dust? I know a lot of great leaders, and I get to work with a lot of great folks, and many of them tell me of regrets of you know what? This thing that we're working on right now is something that I actually put together 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I wish I would have made a commitment and a firm stand to say, this is where I'm planted, this is what I'm doing, this is what, my vision is too important, your vision is too important for the world not to receive it. Right? So what are you going to do? And what accountability measures are you going to have? I was sharing with Sean, who, you guys are going to hear from Sean after lunch. He is amazing, guys. I'm so excited for you to hear about Sean. I was sharing with him that, when I was young, I was morbidly obese. I was really overweight, and just really unhealthy lifestyle, and just some other pieces with that. And so I was just really not confident in my body, and I never really worked out. I was never on the football team or anything like that. And so I never really worked out in the gym. And then I go to high school, college, I get married, kind of lose a little bit of weight, but then I gain it back. Once you have kids, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Got some of the dad bod going. And so then I was like, well, what am I going to do? Well, we play this game called Monster Chase with my little boys. I don't know if you guys have ever had that, where they just love being chased, right? So they're like, Dad, pretend you're a monster. I'm like, okay, whatever, And so I'd chase them around, and I would get winded. I'm like, this is not good, I'm in my early 30s. And so I said, you know what, maybe I could start running. I should not have been running. I should not have been running. And I actually couldn't really run. So what I decided to do instead was just to walk for half a block. Could I do that? And I was kind of winded doing that. And then the next day I walked a full block. And then I kept doing that. And then I was like, I could do the fast walking. You know what I'm talking about? I'm going to show you guys just for a second. I feel comfortable with you guys. Are you guys ready to see it? You're kind of like this, kind of like that? Okay, I'm just kidding. I didn't really do that in public. But, like you just walk faster, and then I started to kind of be a jog thing, then it started being running. And so then I got up to half marathons, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is really good for my weight loss, and I can kind of like keep up with my boys. But I was also running from the fact that I felt really uncomfortable doing all that weight stuff, right? As you get a little bit older, I'm in my mid-40s. It's like, I got to start building muscle. And I don't know if you guys have seen any of those gym fail videos, right? Where they have the leg press and the guy's like doing this, on the leg press or, stuff like that. I'm probably in a couple of those. So just delete it. Don't forward it to your friends. And so I asked for help. I have a coach who's helping me twice a week. Who's doing personal training. And he's like, Michael, here's how you do it, right? I'd ask for help. I addressed one part of it, which was, I want to keep up with my boys. But the deeper piece, the piece that I needed to commit to, was embracing something that I was really uncomfortable in. Kind of uncomfortable learning how to do that. It's been so fun to do that. I can still arm wrestle and beat my boys, which was probably not going to last very long. It's just not. They're getting bigger. But I say that to say you have to have accountability in place. I know myself well enough to know that I will never show up into a gym because I'm too uncomfortable to do that on my own. Just being real with you guys. But I have a coach who's there. Like, Michael, when are you coming? Right? Hey, this is what we're working on. Hey, here's the plan. Hey, did you see your gains from last week? Right? That's kind of cool. That's what I needed. And that's maybe what you need as well. How can you grow in accountability, and who can help you along the way? Who is the mentor, who's the coach, who's the guide to help make that happen? So here's the deal. If it doesn't move you, I'm sharing my heart with you guys. If it doesn't move you, if your vision doesn't move you, it will never move them. It will never happen. Or it may happen to a small degree. But it has to move you to move your team. And I just love this quote. Coach K kind of knows what he's doing, right? Like I know he's recently retired, but Coach K's had an amazing, incredible run with Duke and obviously with the Olympics. But he would always bring in every team and make it real to them. He would make these incredible experiences. It says your team won't own it until they feel it, right? They have to feel your vision that you have, and the only way that they can do that is by bringing in the motivators that they have personally and helping it make it their vision. They have to want it as bad as you want it. Otherwise, your vision may not take you where you want it to go. So the ABCs, I've touched on them. You guys have those set down there. It's just a really, really proven framework. Over 215 teams that I've gotten to work with, hundreds of leaders. This works, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. And so hopefully that'll help you guys on your journey. Here's the deal. You can build plans. You can come to super cool conferences like this. Right? You can create vision boards. You can write things out. You can take what you've written, and it can end up in a drawer somewhere in your office. Anybody ever done that? Right? Do the conference thing. Oh, that was so cool. I got all this inspiration. Where was that thing? I don't know, like 6 months later? I don't want that for you. I don't want that for your teams. Because honestly, it means nothing. Today's going to mean nothing if it doesn't connect with your team's heads and hearts. It's got to be both together. And the same thing for you. If you can connect your head and your heart and your passion and this drive to say this vision that I have won't die, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do everything in my power to have my team on board, and that they're going to have that same vision with me, you can do anything. And you'll be able to reap a harvest 30, 60, 100 times more than even what you planted, which is so cool, because that's how it works. I mentioned this on the process piece, but I do love focusing on the fact that We want to grow our people first and then our profits. And anytime that's inverted, it's always going to be messy. It's always going to be inconsistent. And it's never going to be what it could be. So, if you lead others, Carrie, I get to talk to Carrie a little bit about this, but if you lead others and this framework resonates with you, I'd love to just give you a gift. It's my heart and passion to be able to support great leaders. It's a really big deal to me, as you guys can see. And so I want to give you a free pulse survey. So here's how this works. This is normally about a $1,000 value that I send to teams. I want to gift it to you if you lead others. And this is how it works. It's like 20 of the most powerful questions that I ask. And then you basically have the survey. I connect with you, make sure that your teams can take it. Then you get this full report. And what's super cool is I give you 3 action items, things you can start doing today to make a huge difference with your teams. And so if you want in, you guys all have your phones. If you're interested, I want you to just text the word grow. Super simple. You're going to text back, and then it's going to ask you a question. Make the commitment to answer that question. Right? Give me your name too, because that's always helpful. But I want to help your organization grow. I want to help support you in any way I can, and this is just one way to be able to do that. That's what I got for you guys today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon.